Hey everybody, it's Charlie coming at you again from the 16th annual Bali Spirit Festival, where the theme this year is coming together. And I believe we have somewhere between 2,500 participants out there. We have maybe 150 yoga movement presenters, as well as another 150 musicians. It's 5 days of yoga, movement, meditation, dance, and music. And as such, we're taking some time out in the midst of the festival in this beautiful air-conditioned makeshift studio to interview some of the beautiful presenters who share their heart, their art, their love, their dedication for whatever modality. And I'm so honored to have my brother, Jordy Jules, here with me this afternoon. Jordy Jules, his modality is Qigong. And originally, he's not originally, he is French and Spanish, or I should say you're Spanish and French.
Yeah.
And you've been living here in Bali for 8 years. Mm-hmm. And just as an intro, I'd love you to introduce yourself. Who are you? Where do you come from? What was your arc into the world of spirit? How did you find yourself in beautiful Bali? And here you are teaching at the festival. What are you teaching?
Here at the festival, I'm going to be sharing some Qigong and also a modality that is called quantum flow.
Quantum flow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty new modality that it's been working for me for the last 5 years. So it's a pleasure to share it. And I'm teaching it also at the yoga barn once a week together with Qigong. And it's been very well received and very welcome. So we're very happy to share it in the festival as well.
Okay, Quantum Flow at the Bali Spirit Festival.
Yeah.
Tell us about that first, and then let's go back to your history, where you're from. And I bet you didn't start doing Quantum Flow.
No, Quantum Flow came actually with synchronicities. The synchronicities that happen in Bali took me to the Quantum Flow practice that we can come back to it maybe later. But yeah, like you said, I'm originally from Barcelona. My mother is French, so double nationality. And the path to spirit, it kind of came naturally to me because I grew up in a religious school. And also in my family, from my dad's side, one of my aunties, she's a Buddhist, a converted Buddhist.
Okay.
She was always in India when we were kids. She's a yoga teacher, Kung Fu, Tai Chi, Qigong. And she was always around coming back from this further east countries.
And were you close with her as a child growing up?
We would see her coming back from India or from China or from the mountains of Nepal and Tibet. And she even brought Buddhist monks to Spain. And now what we saw as kids when they were building a Buddhist monastery in the Pyrenees, in the mountains of Aragon in Spain.
Okay.
She had a little cabana where she used to meditate. And I was recently there a couple of years ago, and it's become, you feel like you're in Nepal. It's in Spain, but you feel like you enter Nepal when you're there.
Okay.
So that was in my childhood, all this surrounding.
Okay. And, is your aunt still alive?
She's still alive,
okay.
Yeah. In fact, she just won last year, I think, one of the European Tai Chi competitions at 70-something. She never competed, but they invite her, and she broke one of the limiting beliefs and went to compete on an European Tai Chi whatever it is competition, and she won it.
So let me pause there, because that's a perfect example of someone who found their passion, right? Your aunt found her passion early in life, right? Planted that seed, nurtured it, watered it, and it bloomed, right? And I bet she shared it outward to others. I bet she has been of service onto others. I mean, she's inspired you, and you're being of service onto others. So I don't mean this to go off on your aunt, but I'm just curious if you could follow that thread a bit.
Yes, 100%. She's now in her late 70s, and she looks so healthy and vibrant. And she developed that since a young age. She followed her path and her passion. But the abundance that she's created around her, like her trainings and workshops, they're just 60, 70 people. She's
still working.
She's still sharing. Yeah, she was even asked to become to leave society and go for 3 years with the monks to become a higher priest. But she's a grandmother, so she chose to stay and experience her grandchild.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so I had that influence since a young age.
Right.
And the interest, of course, in spirituality for me was a natural thing. However, I did follow more of a corporate path at the beginning.
Okay.
Probably due to the influence from family, as most of us, and my dad, and seeing success as that part of like being the boss or being a director or being the owner of
the
business.
Nice clothes, the fast car, the big house.
Yes, and the security, right? That security that we've been told you find it with that monthly salary.
Yes.
And that definition of success, right? And although I always knew there was something else, I feel I follow that path based a little bit on the influence of the family, on that side, the influence of what was maybe success back then, and also the not knowing what to do with life when I was younger. It's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with life? And then I still think I chose in a good way the things that I was passionate about, because I did follow a career in hospitality based on surfing. So I like surfing as one of my passions. And the way I found to live in surfing destinations was hospitality, because I spoke French and Spanish. Then I learned English in Australia, and after that, combined with an economics degree, I'm like, okay, I'll do a hospitality career. And like this, I can live in destinations where I can surf.
Yes, serving through surfing.
Exactly. Yes, and the analogies in surfing and the spiritual world as well. Like surfing has so many metaphors for life,
of course,
and analogies for the spiritual realm, right? And life lessons for life in general. I have to say then, for me, what happened is I even did, like back then when I was in my early 20s, I did a regression therapy course, bringing people to past lives. So we did a course on how to bring people to previous lives, and I was the youngest one on that training and workshop, and people in that workshop inspired me and told me, you should follow that path. You should do work on all these realms and so on. However, for me, I was thinking back then, it would be very easy to go into the monastery or the mountains or be surrounded by a community like we're here and be kind of like shanti and all peaceful and find this inner peace and this understanding of life. And back then I remember thinking, I want to prove these concepts in the real world. Right? The real world meaning more the mainstream world where I was going for that management career, being the boss, the success as is defined in society, in mainstream society. And I was like, I want to prove these spiritual concepts in that real world. And that's a little bit why I also continue going for, after studying economics, for the master in hotel management and working then in hospitality and so on. In the back of my mind and my being, there was always that energetic kind of work and tools that I learned from books, and mainly from books before, and then practicing that energetic work also on the mainstream world. And together then it came with a yoga practice. So in high-paced environments like hospitality, there's a 24/7 job, 365 days a year, non-stop stress. Yoga helped me a lot.
Mitigate the stress.
100%. And then to have like clear vision, clarity, understanding for others, empathy, and gaining perspective. Having a practice in the middle of the day to kind of break the stress of the morning and then refresh start in the afternoon or evening. And then in 2010 is when I came to Bali. When I was working in Thailand, I came to Bali to do a yoga teacher training.
Okay.
And back then, I had again the temptation to go already on that path.
Yes.
But still the fear of the future and the security that was bringing me, being already a middle executive in hospitality back then, 14 years ago, it dragged me back to the mainstream world because of the security of that financial security. And still, I wanted to find that success of like more like what's winning great, like society or like more like I would say from my father's side, a personal life.
Sure.
And I didn't pursue the yoga teacher or service in the yoga world at that time. I continued with the other kind of service. However, my practice got really, really good after that teacher training, and it improved. And I had been practicing since 2004 yoga every day. 2010, I did a yoga teacher training, And then it just deepened my practice. And in that teacher training, I had learned the 5 elements form from Peter Clifford, very wise man and very good teacher and practitioner from Australia. And that was one of the bases of my foundation.
And 5 elements is Tibetan based, is that correct?
Is from the north of India, in the Nepal, Tibet area.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember exactly the location, but after, when I met Peter again years after, and I was already into a Qigong practice, is when I saw that I asked him, hey, what happened with this yoga practice? The names are very similar, the movements are very similar to Qigong, or exactly the same. And he told me, well, this is one of the original forms of yoga, or whatever was called back then, of practices, that then migrated to the south, and in India made more of what we know as yoga nowadays, and then it went east, and China developed it more as Chinese medicine, Qigong, Tai Chi, and so on. Mm-hmm. But they are very ancient forms, and the similarity with Qigong is just incredible. Yet I was taught this practice as a yoga practice, and I called it yoga, and it's a yoga practice, because the movements, aside of like movements like scoop the earth, part the clouds, that are like a Qigong movement, you also have Shiva embraces Shakti. Yeah, so it's more of a Vedic Indian influence in the movements, but they're very similar movements to Qigong forms.
Okay. Yeah. And at what point did you jettison the old stressful corporate 24/7 hospitality? Yeah. And what was the inflection point that got you to go full power into your Qigong and now your quantum flow? Yes. And then how did you find yourself here full time, and then finally tie it all into Bali Spirit Festival and come together? Yeah.
It was one of the synchronicities of life when we went through the pandemic in 2020. I did stop working as my own decision. Even if the hotel asked me to stay with them, I decided to fire myself after I presented the budget for 2021, because during the pandemic, a very good friend of mine from childhood gave me a call, and they were having severe lockdowns in Spain, and he lived in a small apartment with 2 teenagers and a dog and a wife, and was struggling, and he called me in tears and said like, hey Jordy, I saw that, I don't know if it was an Instagram post or something like that. He's like, I saw you doing this, and can you help me? And I said, sure, let me check on YouTube. I look for some videos on Spanish. He doesn't speak English. I researched and didn't find anything of quality. So then I was having lunch in a booth here with a friend of mine who's a professional filmmaker on his 50s. And we both sitting in a cafe, a booth, and he's like, hey man, your industry is going to shit, and mine is already gone. What are we gonna do? And I'm like, well, a friend of mine just called me, and he's in this situation. He's like, why we don't take the bikes? And he offered, let's go around Bali and shoot a few videos. And I'm like, sure. So we took the bikes a couple of days around Bali, shoot these beautiful videos, practicing Qigong. And then he gave me a microphone and explained me how to do the voiceover. And suddenly he handed me some edited videos that they were like super high quality, like cinematographic quality. And I'm like, okay, I guess I need to do a website now. So then I did a website. I learned how to do a website on my own. I developed a website, and then I posted videos, and suddenly I had courses in Spanish and English of Qigong, right?
And did you suddenly find that this was actually your calling, that this was your passion? Did it supersede your passion for the corporate world, climbing the ladder?
Yes.
And have you felt more at ease, congruent, feeling that you're being of greater service onto others?
Yes. 100%. It's still a process. There is still the temptation coming. And what's been amazing is every time I would consider, all right, am I going to be following that path, having fears, again, financial fear, being used to a very comfortable life and a very secure, abundant life in the terms of finance, yet feeling not complete when I was there. On the process of stepping into that more authentic purpose, let's say, or being at service with more of a calling that feels more aligned with my soul, the fears come and the doubt comes.
Right.
And what's interesting,
and this is universal, by the way, right?
It happens
Everyone feels this.
And we hear about it,
of
and
course.
we read about it, but that's when the practices come to life. when you feel the fear and you go through the doubts, it's like you do the practice, follow the intuition, connect with your essence, the soul, and then the belief, the trust, the prayer, whatever is your practice, and then the signs come from the universe that are going to guide you.
And the doors open.
And then it happens.
The doors open.
The funny part is like the more we relax into it, like we're doing Qigong,
right,
the more it's flowing and happening. And then all you have to do almost is just be you. But we need to remove all the layers that maybe they are not the authentic you, your soul, your essence. And that's the practice again and the work. And it's like removing. And being aware of the patterns that come, either fear or insecurities or a lack of trust or any doubt, and just observe them. And then you just clear them and connect again to what feels more aligned in that moment. And it might keep moving and changing. But what it was interesting for me in that journey that I found myself still going, because I still get some job offers that are very tempting sometimes. And it's interesting how the thought process works and the patterns in the mind still goes on, like, what if I do this? Or even I cross resorts sometimes, and I still imagine how would it be to work there, and the mind's still doing that game. So it's still a process for me. And interestingly is the carrots would get bigger and bigger. The carrots as the temptation that you get to go back to the old life. It would be like the offer would be more money, a location with surf for me, that I like that, a tropical location in a perfect destination. I would be like, oh my God. It's like, and the moment you say no to that, then on the other way, something would align faster to happen, like being invited to be part of Bali Spirit Festival. And then it's like, okay, I think the universe is asking me to do that. My path, it seems to be that way, because all the signs are pointing in that direction. And if I remove the fear of the future, if I remove all that imagination in my mind going in like, what if, then it just seems to happen without effort. And then is when it's beautiful, because I feel much richer in as a person. Like the happiness you find inside is just incredible. And I'm still a work in progress and process, right? And it's a feeling. Mainly, there is something. It feels like there is something that is going to happen in the future, and it's almost you can feel it, but I don't know what form it has and shape. And that's when it's also what we don't have to worry about, right? It's like it's just the knowing that there is something there in the future that is bigger. It feels bigger, and it feels really good. And I don't know what shape or form it's going to take, but it's just like that trust of like, okay, we're going in that direction.
Well, I want to share with you from my experience. I took Jordy's class the other day. First time I'd actually taken Jordy's class. This is Qigong class. And there was a group of us, probably 12 to 15. This was just 2 days prior to the festival. The festival's being housed here at the yoga barn. And as I said at the outset, Jordy's is just one modality of the infinite number of modalities here to experience, all leading one to the same place, right? Yeah. So my experience in your class the other day, having more of a Hatha yoga background, I'm from San Francisco, and I always fascinated going through downtown San Francisco where there's this Chinatown. And there are these grassy lawns in Chinatown in front of these Chinese temples with big pagodas. And invariably, there will be 70, 80, even 90-looking-year-old men and women just doing these very graceful, gentle, slow-moving forms. And it's beautiful to watch. It's like a dance, right? And so we experienced this other day. We experienced a form of this dance, probably not as graceful in my case, but there we were, just this slow inhales and imagining the energetic body and moving that energy as you moved through it, and doing just very, simple exercises of opening up between the joints and the fascia and the wrists and you meticulously went head to toe, and it was almost as if little tiny locks were being unlocked through every single joint in the body, and this kind of energetic flow. And it was a very kind of internal feeling for me, a very good feeling, very relaxing feeling. But as internal as it was, we were still with this group of people. And I also felt the connection externally to the group of people that were
Yes.
in that room. That was just my feeling of it.
Nice.
And I'd like to have you share if I was finger on the button,
Yes.
like is.
I love to hear it. Like, I love how you describe it, and very happy that you had that experience with one class. Not everyone gets it in one class, but with Qigong practice is so big, and the practice just keep growing. The more we practice, the more sensations and feelings like that we can have. And I love a definition of one master that mentioned the words of permeability with the universe. Like, you permeate, like your skin almost disappears and you're permeating with the universe, right? And that might sound a little bit esoteric, but it's not. It's just it's a practice that if you do practice Qigong, you get to have these sensations.
If you think scientifically, right, the universe is made of atoms.
Yes.
And we're made of atoms.
Yes.
And no bigger, right? Every atom in your body is connected to everything, every other atom in the universe. So that makes total sense.
Yeah, 99.9% energy, they say we are. So we are space and energy. And of course, we see the matter. But with this practice, both Qigong, quantum flow, yoga, whatever practice resonates with us in each moment and stage of life, we can get to feel those and perceive and have sensations that give you the impression that is reality, that it doesn't become something imaginary, is part of the world, but we're not taught that, we're not educated in that way. And that's what BaliSpirit is one of the missions here, and we're doing is we have all these forms of practices and all these elements that we can add to our toolbox to have a better quality of life, to find another way of living that maybe is not how we've been taught as we are kids, and is not in the main educational system and the mainstream society, definitely not in the media, definitely not in the political systems that we live, right? And we can find freedom of all those established ways of living with different practices. And there is so much knowledge nowadays here in the festival. We find it is so many varieties of practices. And in my opinion, we have different practices for different people, different states in life. And personally, I was practicing yoga for many, many years. And then Qigong came very strongly, and quantum flow as well. And we don't have to stick only to one practice. There's many ways to go to the top of the mountain. And depending where we are in life, we take one path or the other, wherever resonates. But for me, what is important is to practice. And that's the message I try to give on my workshops when I do intensive workshops, is all you have to do is practice 30 minutes a day.
Nice metaphor. So for those of you listening out there, right, there's many ways to get to the top of the mountain, right? Are you stuck in your life? Is something not working right for you? Do you need to shift things up? I mean, that's what we're all doing here, right? We're shifting things up, because the only way that we change the paradigm of this world that is fast forwarding to, just resource extraction, selfishness, greed, right? Is to first change ourselves, right? Are we in right relation with ourselves, with our friends, with our loved ones, with our community at large? Are we being of service onto others? Are we giving our natural God-gifted talents onto others? And you certainly are.
Slowly getting there. Yes. Even in the corporate world, I feel like there was a part of service, because I was working with people, right? But it feels like a different calling now. The sharing the practices, it feels more aligned with what's happening in the planet, like you were mentioning, and the way we are operating in a limited space, which is the planet, and how we're just using resources nonstop, and how the population keeps on growing nonstop, but also how we live in a quantitative system of more quantity. Everything is more. And for me, already in the crisis in 2008, the economical crisis, it felt like, we're going to go to a more qualitative system instead of quantity. And yet we continue. Then with the crisis in the pandemic, it felt also like, okay, that's going to shake the world. And then we're going to go again into more quality over quantity. And yet we
not
continue.
There yet.
No, and it feels that economic systems that continuous growth and keeping on expanding and always more, it's obviously not sustainable in a limited space like the planet. And I think finding a way to living more in harmony with nature, with resources, with ourselves, with the other humans around us, these practices can definitely help to do that. And like you were mentioning, it's not gonna come from the top, it's coming from each of us taking that responsibility and that action of changing what are we doing in our lives. And that doesn't mean that we become perfect and we are perfect because we practice something. There's always layers, and peeling the onion and getting layer after layer after layer. But definitely it does help when one changes. It has a bit of a ripple effect in your surrounding. And I really believe in that. Like, I'm not, my partner is a very big activist and likes, and I've never been like that. It doesn't go with my nature, I think. But I like to focus more on the micro. And if we can improve our micro environments and near us and really get along with our families, with our friends, with the traffic, with people around us, that then might create a ripple effect on a macro level. And it's a bit that analogy. It's like if we work on ourselves, if we practice in ourselves and look at how are we living life and really being vulnerable and authentic and honest, and removing those patterns that are not useful or not constructive for our being and our connection to the soul and what really the soul and the essence wants, I think that can have a ripple effect on the world. Right? And it's that's why Bali Spirit and the yoga barnets and places and gatherings like that are so good that are happening, because people can come and maybe they're in the mainstream society having a 9-to-5 job, stressful lives, and they might have an inflection point having an experience in one of the workshops here. And then we open the interest to question how do we grow food, how do we eat, how do we live, how do we think, even how do we feel. And when I say what do we eat, it's not only food. What do we get from the media? What kind of TV shows do we watch? How are we spending our 24 hours? And that is affecting our thoughts, our emotions, our lifestyle.
Good point.
And that's why these things that are happening out here are so good.
Right.
Because there's people that might get a life-change experience in this 4-day festival, maybe with one class, with one aha moment, or maybe the whole festival probably is going to be like, oh my God, and it's going to open the door to questioning.
And just to think, if one person, just one person, leaves this festival and changes their life and pursues their passion, right? One person.
Yes.
We've slowly changed the world.
Yes.
I was with Daphne before. How do you change the world, Mother Teresa?
Nice.
One person at a time.
Yeah.
Jordy, thank you for sharing your heart, your art. We didn't even get into quantum flow. But Jordy teaches at the Yoga Barn. So if you come through Bali and you wish to come and experience one of his Qigong or quantum flow classes, please do. You're teaching here at the festival over the next 4 days. So maybe I'll get a chance to jump in.
Please. Hopefully you try the quantum flow as well.
Thank you.
And thank you for having me here, Charlie. And
we're
the
blessed,
festival. Thank you so
blessed
much.
and honored.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother.